Hello, gorgeous, and welcome to the Women on Top podcast. I'm your host, Valerie Lynn, and with over 15 years of business experience, I became truly passionate about finding ways to support and hear from way more women. And what we know to be true is that women thrive when they are in their favorite position, on top in business, in relationships, in personal growth, and on top in being real and authentic to who the hell they are. So I invite you to sit back and enjoy the Women on Top podcast. Welcome back to the Women on Top, everybody. Today, I am just so excited to be sitting across the virtual table from my guest, Meagan Allers, who is a community architect and really like a partnership strategist at Marco Polo. And I love Marco Polo as an app. And so we're going to talk about what it is, just in case you don't know, but we're also really going to dive into all of Meagan's expertise. She really has been, I feel like Meagan's been driven by this belief that connection really is the thing that changes everything. She's helped scale things like ambassador programs. She's also founded a women's pickleball community. She brings people together with such purpose, joy, and Meagan really has a contagious energy that just changes the way that we gather. And I'm just so grateful that you're here today, Meagan. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Excited to chat all things community.
Yeah, I love it. So let's actually get started kind of in a different direction. I'd love to know kind of what you think the difference is between community building and community management, because there's two different components here. And I know a lot of women who listen to this are interested in potentially both, who are building their own businesses, who are also working on that community aspect, and who are trying to manage, if they have a small to mid-sized community, they're trying to manage that too. So I'd love to kind of have you articulate, like, what do you see the difference between those things as being?
Yeah. So for me, community building is really where you're rolling up your sleeves and you're, one-on-one kind of finding those foundational members to help you. You're really ears to the ground trying to understand, what is the value that I can bring this community? Why would someone want to join this community? How can we cultivate events or programs that would really excite people with this? And so that building stage is really the foundation of, what you're looking at. And certainly, one thing I found as communities have grown is, that key persona may change. You may realize like, okay, we need to change how we're doing this or doing that. But the management piece I see is more so like, okay, how can we continue this? Now that we've built it, now that we have this group, how can I keep it going? How can I keep people engaged and keep them showing up in a way that provides value to both them and other members of the community as well?
Yeah, I love that. I'm curious, you know so much about community and I feel like people. How did you get involved in this? Like, I'd love to hear the backstory because I just love what you're involved in. I feel like it's like another language to you. Like, you just know how to speak this this language of this other world. So what's the backstory for us?
Yeah. When I really think about it, it goes back to my dad, actually. Like when I was younger, he was really involved in connecting people in nonprofits. And I would see him just model this way of going up to someone and starting a conversation, whether it be the cash register at the grocery store or someone in an elevator, and just being curious. And I feel like that really came with me. And it was really in college for me that it really took off. I was actually really shy in high school. I was on the softball team, but I really didn't have this like big group of friends. And I had seen this kind of mentor of mine who was in college. I was doing an internship and I said, what's one thing you wish you did differently in your college experience? And he said, I wish I would have gotten involved sooner. He waited until senior year. And so for me, that was the spark that when I went freshman year to college, I signed up to be like the vice president of my dormitory at school. And it was like something that was completely outside my comfort zone. I had never really done this, but it was through that small action that led me to be senior class president, to, run student organizations in different groups, and really like find this joy in connecting people and hearing someone's story. A couple key people in there, but one of my favorite quotes that I also heard, I was at a leadership summit at St. Jude Children's Hospital, and they said, people don't join organizations, people join people. And that to me was just such a key thing that I've carried through of, me, the people that we're gathering with, they're going to be the reason why someone else will show up and join. And so how can I make sure I'm showing up in a way that others would want to partake?
Mm, I love that quote. Gosh, I have a couple questions. So
Yeah,
first,
yeah,
as you were talking, I was thinking about myself, but I was also thinking
yeah.
about some other women who I know listen to this. Do you feel like people can create community even if they're introverted? And the reason I say that is
Yes.
because sometimes I feel like, oh, it's always the most social people who are out there as the best salespeople or the best community, builders. And I just wonder from your perspective, have you witnessed there being some success, or do you have any tips for women who might be introverted and still want to build community?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I feel like back in the day, I'd be like 100% I'm an extrovert. But as I've grown older, I feel more that ambivert, maybe more towards introvert. And for me, it takes a lot of energy to show up at groups and to lead in groups. And for me, I really like the one on one. And so I think that oftentimes for introverts, like finding ways that you can still connect with people, whether that's, digitally, you're, reaching out to someone, or you're going to do one-on-one coffee dates to really like ask questions in that way. I think that it doesn't always have to be like you're on this big stage or around a lot of people. I think that there's small ways you can show up and do it authentically and genuinely. I think that that's really the key. If there's times that you're going to try to do something and it's like, oh gosh, you want to make sure you're doing something that's within your zone too. But I'd also say it's like a learned trait. Spoke at my senior, commencement, senior graduation. And the idea of public speaking for me back in the day, I wanted to vomit. And now I feel like because I've practiced it so much, I'm like not as terrified of it. But I definitely think there's like, you get into it. I think getting out of your comfort zone is always good.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of how I've seen some of the best, or I still believe that some of the best leaders are introverts. And so to kind of what you said, I think it's just building from that place of authenticity
Yeah.
versus trying to do it maybe like how somebody else is doing it. And I totally resonate with what you said. Like the older I've gotten, the more I question, am I actually introverted? Like, no, I think I just really need the time to myself to be able to recharge. So, um,
So true.
and like you said, it has to also feel authentic to me. Like if I'm trying to do it like somebody else is doing it, it just never ends up working out the way that I think it should. So
Yeah.
I feel like community, is one of those things because people can feel that from you.
Hmm.
Um, Okay, so I want to kind of have you share. I'd love to know a little bit about the history. You work for Marco Polo as their community manager. So, what kind of was the history of the app for those listening that maybe don't use it or even who do use it? I'd just love to have you kind of share with us.
Yeah, articulate. Yeah, so I was employee number 8 at Marco Polo almost 10 years ago now.
Employee
So it
number
is
8?
wild. Yeah, yeah,
Oh
like
my
so early.
gosh.
And my first job title was super awesome. So it wasn't even like, this is your established thing. It's very much that startup mindset. And we're founded by a husband and wife team, Vlada and Michał Bortnik, who wanted to help their families stay connected. They were spread across the globe in different time zones, and their children were young. And they wanted a way that they could connect without the burden of scheduling or needing to, coordinate different things. And so Marco Polo was born out of that. And it's, like video texting, if you will. You send a video, they can watch it on their own time and send you one back. And we've had millions of users now, which has been so awesome. And it's really, I would say, different from social media. I think people initially hear like video messaging and they're like, oh, I already have FaceTime, or I already have this, and it's like, well, actually, you're doing it with your close inner circle of friends. Often we don't really have filters or things like that, but you're going on and having these genuine conversations.
Yeah.
So early on, didn't have the community title. It definitely has evolved over the years. And I actually really love that I got to do a bunch of different things.
Yeah. It's I've shared this with you, but I'll share with the audience that I have been changed because of Marco Polo. It really has been a differentiator, especially in this remote world, for my relationships. Because quite honestly, I don't have the time to make space for phone calls for all of my relationships.
Yeah.
you know, are all
Yes.
over the place, and Marco Polo allows the ability for us to leave messages when it's convenient, and then be able to get back to each other when it's convenient as well. Um, you know, I bet you're seeing so many themes and patterns from the messages within the communities that you support and just within the company itself. I'm curious kind of what you're learning that especially women are craving more of, when it comes to community connection or even just their relationships in general.
Yeah. I would say that there's a definite theme going on right now, right? We have the loneliness epidemic being talked about. And I think that there's definitely a trend of how challenging it is to make friends after college. And I think we are in this college setting, you're around people, you have the same schedules, and then everyone moves away. And it's now like, wait, we have a 3 hour time difference. How do I do this? My friends don't live by me. How do I make new connections? And this idea of everyone is so busy, we all have a ton going on, but yet we do want that person that can support us and uplift us and listen to us on a hard day. And so I think at times, themes I'm seeing with women is, we go on Instagram or we go on social media and we send each other a meme and it's like, oh, I'm connecting. And it's this false sense of connection of like, oh, well, I sent her that or this or whatever. And then maybe a week or two later, you find out this person was going through something really challenging. And it's like, oh, why didn't they share that with me? Oh, I didn't call or I didn't ask or I didn't. And so I think people are craving more kind of genuine conversation, but yet we're so busy. And so that's like the kind of point that we're at right now as a society and this false sense of connection, I would say too.
Yeah. What do you, for yourself personally, what does connection mean to you?
Yeah, I love having conversations. Like I love that. For me, I have a couple best friends back on the East Coast. I'm on the West Coast. And so to me, it's getting that video message every morning of just all the mundane things going on in someone else's life and being able to tell them about mine and what's going on. And that back and forth, I find I have a lot of like one-on-one connections. Like I'm not so much the group chat girl that I've got like all the chaos going on. But, I recently went through something challenging with my health, and it was really awesome to see my community step up for me in just really amazing ways, whether it was like reaching out or like sending flowers or they know I love tea or just like different things. And it was almost overwhelming of just like how kind. And I think it's in those moments when you realize like, oh, wow, like the connections I've flourished, they're now able to support me in this way. And so that was really, really awesome.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And I love that they were able to give you that kind of support. And I think that that is kind of, that's one of the byproducts of connection that maybe we don't realize is there until something happens
Ah,
that, and then we're able to kind of be a witness to that. I had something similar when I, recently left my last employer, and in leading the community there, just the outpouring of messages from the women, it was like, wow, just what you kind of don't get a lot of opportunities in life to witness maybe some of your impact. But it's amazing to have that. And it's only because of community that you do have, access to some of that, I feel like, and relationships, I guess I should say. But yeah, I really appreciate what you said about, kind of having those deeper conversations and even the piece about sharing the mundane, because
yes.
I think we lost that. I think we used to
Uh-huh.
do that a little bit more when we didn't have, as our phones. I remember doing that with friends. We just talk on the phone and I don't know, use AOL Instant Messenger, whatever we were using. And like,
Yes.
I feel like we kind of lost that when we went virtual, and everyone, yeah, memes are fun and great, but it's not quite the same as really getting to know somebody's life on the inside. So I think to your point, that's kind of what maybe people are missing too. And that's a little bit of what this app does. So that's what Marco Polo, I think, does. And then community as well. I wonder with so you've been you launched this pickleball community. I want to say
Yes.
you've been
Yes.
running it. You're the founder of a really awesome and like very large community, if I might add. I literally went to one of Mega's events and I was like, there's a ton of people here. There's not just a handful, there's a ton. So I want
Yes.
to kind of hear the journey of you launching that. And
Yeah.
I'm thinking of the woman who is interested in creating something like a community for herself, and
Yeah.
to kind of give some of those tactical tips of what you did just to get it off the ground.
Yeah, I love this. My background was in college student activities and events. So I had this background of like, I can get some food and reserve a location and like do an event or an icebreaker or things like that. And I think working at Marco Polo, building communities virtually has been so amazing and leading webinars and having women connect. And so that's been really great. But what I found for me personally is that, I'm working remotely, I'm living in San Diego, and I felt kind of isolated. I felt kind of isolated that it was like, how do I build community locally? And the spark was really these pickleball courts being built at a park by my house. And a big conversation topic right now is the lack of third spaces. Valerie, we used to go to the malls, right? Back in the back in the 90s. And we like that was a great third space. And you go and meet people there, like a coffee shop. And like those are kind of going away. And so when these pickleball courts opened at the park, it was amazing because I'd pop down every afternoon and I would meet all of these people who live in my immediate neighborhood, who even lived in my building. And I've lived here, 5 years. I never met them, but at the with watering hole of the pickleball court, we all connect. And so that community was slowly growing and growing. Someone started a group chat. And what I noticed was there was a ton of men showing up there, and there was an equally amount of women in the group chat. And when I would reach out to them one-on-one and say, oh, you should come to pickleball, they expressed that they were like, a little intimidated. Like, gosh, I don't want to just show up by myself, or, the men will slam the ball or this or that. And I'm like, this is really something I could help with. I was a softball player growing up, and I'm like, I really want to create a space where women feel comfortable to learn the sport, to get into it, that they could then play. And so it was calling up the local pickleball center that has, 20 courts, just being like, hey, I want to bring this community to you. Can you set me up? And then slowly like reaching out to different vendors. A lot of cold outreach on like LinkedIn or Instagram or other places of just saying, hey, like, this is what I really want to do. And I found some amazing female pickleball coaches that love to donate their time to get to help women learn the sport, which has been so cool. And then really kind of expanding it as well, like at the events that you were at, Valerie, like I always love to start it off with like, hey, I love how social pickleball can be. Let's all introduce ourselves to 5 different women that you don't know here. And really kicking it off that like, yes, we're here to play the sport, but I also want you to find that like pickleball friend group or meet a new person that you could engage with. And so that was a big thing I really enjoyed too.
Yeah, that's a really good tactical exercise that people can use, even if it's not a large event. I think that you're kicking off. So to the women listening, like even if it's a small group, that it still might be worthwhile to do some sort of engagement exercise right away when people are meeting.
Yeah, yeah. I would say another thing too to add, Valerie, like tactically, it was a lot of one-on-one outreach. My events, I have 100 women that come to them now, and it seems like wild to me. Like every time I go to like publish an event, I'm like, oh gosh, like how many people will come? And there's that like imposter syndrome of just like, oh gosh. But I do a lot of like personal, like, hey, I'd love to see you there. Like bring a friend. Like, are you coming back again? Because I know that that's part of the relationship building, and I'm still in that community building phase, right? Like I want to get to know the women who are part of my community. And so that's been a key thing too, of like putting it out there and then also kind of nurturing as well. And women have brought other friends. I think that's really how it's grown too, and encouraging people like, hey, next time if you have a friend, like have them pop by.
Yeah. I appreciate how you are so good at reaching out to people. And I love, we were talking before the podcast a little bit about cold outreach. How do you get past feeling salesy and gross when you are doing the cold outreach, asking for a friend?
Yeah. Right. All the time. You know, I would say I really come at it from a place of curiosity. I think that when I do outreach, like some of my favorite outreaches on LinkedIn are, people who are from my hometown of Buffalo, New York, and seeing what they're doing and just being like, hey, love the work you're doing, curious if you'd be up for a chat. And I feel like that, like coming in, like curious, it's not like, oh, you have to do it or don't have to do it. But I love like that kind of outreach. I've also done it in the pickleball space, just in paddle companies of like, hey, I've got this women's community. Would you be up for, sending some paddles that I could connect the women with? And I feel like for the brand, it's like, wow, there's this really niche grassroots organization. Like, what an opportunity, for that kind of collaboration to happen. Certainly people can ignore my messages, and a good number do. But I always get really excited when I do like connect with a brand or have a chat with a new person that can then lead to something down the line.
Yeah. Do you find that it's best to, use written outreach, or are you a fan of like voice note? Like some people are video, voice notes. I am not as I don't know, bold.
Yeah,
But I'm curious if it works for you, because maybe I'll switch my strategy.
yeah, right. I have not done a video outreach in a minute. I feel like I just go with the text, and on LinkedIn for me, it's going to connect with someone and then personalizing that invite. So you've got like 300 characters to like get your
Yeah.
little like thing in there. And I think so often, like when people are connecting on LinkedIn, they don't personalize. And so then it's like, well, why is this person wanting to connect with me? So even if you just like read someone's profile and have a little thing, like I find that that's helpful. And the voice, I love a good voice note. I think it works on mobile, but not on desktop though.
Yeah.
So then I'm like, I don't know about that. So I've just done the text-based one, but could be good to do a voice in the future.
That's good to know. That's good to know your strategy as to how
Yeah.
you kind of have done this. Okay, so you've kind of grown this community. What are some of the challenges that maybe people don't see behind the scenes that you encounter when you are trying to really manage that community and make sure they feel engaged and make sure they're bringing in new members?
Yeah. I think for me, a big thing is managing my own energy around
Uh,
it. I think that I love to put my whole heart into things, and I would love to, do events all the time, but I know it is draining for me. And so for me with the women's pickleball community, I do these like quarterly larger events and then do smaller events, just because the larger events, there's different brand activations and there's different vendors I have and things like that. And, certain I see other organizers doing events on a more like monthly basis or biweekly basis. And I just know for me, it may take some of the joy out of it to have to do it so much. And then it wouldn't feel as exciting to me. And so I think like as an organizer, when leading a community, finding a good balance for you, because I think, when I talk to other community organizers, they talk about like certainly like frequency and cadence. You want your members to know like when they can expect a next event or thing like that. But if you burn out, then where does that leave the community? So really finding a good cadence for you.
yeah. Gosh, that's a really good tip around just managing your own energy. I think
Yeah.
people forget that, myself included, and then you feel like, oh, I'm burning out on this topic or on doing this, and really maybe it's not that you're burning out on that thing. It's just that you need to manage your own energy in a different way.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that women can take with them. If there's somebody out there who is, in the process of creating an event or a community right now, but is kind of feeling that imposter syndrome or fear around it, what would you say to her right now?
I would say that everyone had to be a beginner at one point, and that's something I say to women who are on the pickleball court too, who may be feeling silly, right? We all had to try something for the first time at one point or another. And so I think, find those people in your life who are your biggest cheerleaders, who are going to be like, hey, you know what? Even if a couple people show up, that's a couple more than you had before, and keep showing up and keep trying different things. And I'm sure it will happen. Just stay determined in it for sure.
Yeah. I feel like, people who do eventually launch events or communities, eventually somebody comes, like at least
Yeah.
one person ends up coming, right? And
Yeah.
so that can turn into a ripple effect. And I like what you said of like, just kind of keep going with, with your
Hmm.
passion and just keep moving forward.
I'd say one thing too, Valerie, is I love the trends I'm seeing right now too on like the rise of in-person communities. I think you're seeing this
Yes.
shift of like we did so much digitally during COVID, and now it's like the run clubs and the in-person, mom meetups or mom walks or the walking groups or like the women in business groups. Like people are craving that kind of in-person different stuff. So I think now is the time if you're going to try an in-person event that it's good time to give it a go.
Yeah. What are like I'm I'm trying to think of like what are the top several event types or community types that you think are going to grow in the next, I don't know, 1 to 2 years. I'm even thinking of like what would you like if you had a blank slate and could start any community knowing what you know about people's needs and wants and desires. What are those kind of several that you think are just going to take off in the next couple of years?
I feel like the niche communities are just like really interesting. I was approached the other day by a chess group that meets at a bar every week and they play chess. And it's a way to connect people through a hobby, through something, right? I have that numerous friends that have book clubs, and it's like they want to connect people in person around this shared joy of reading different books and things like that. So I feel like those niche organizations are really on the uprise right now. Um, and I also think there's always the place for the women in entrepreneurial kind of business type groups. I really see a lot of those as well, that as women are building or creating, finding that group that is going through something similar that can support you. I actually joined one of those groups this past year, and it's 9 of us, and we meet virtually, we meet in person, and being able to hear how they're thinking about their careers and business has been really helpful and intentional, and like having those conversations.
Interesting. I like what you said, niche, like niche
For sure.
groups. So that's almost really good for somebody to think about too, is to not be afraid of getting really specific around something that you want to create community around, like chess, playing chess in
Yeah,
the
yeah,
bar.
yeah.
And then
Right?
how do you find these groups? Like, are they're reaching out to you, but if somebody doesn't have that, how do they go out there and find it? Just a good old Google search, or is there?
Yeah. Find that like Google searches are great. Facebook groups, I feel like Facebook groups has still been
Yeah,
like humming
yeah.
along. That's a big one. I would also say going on Instagram and searching, your location with some different topics or things like that. I also find some good groups and organizations there. And then still love a good like your local coffee shop that has the bulletin board
Yeah.
of like, I still think that that is a great way to hear about things. So that could be a good place too if your listeners have any communities that they're looking to build, like post posters there, you're having this event, or that could be a good place too.
Yeah. I feel like maybe we'll kind of be going back in time a little bit with some of the things that we see in the next several years around like what you just said around bulletin boards and some of those things that used to be so tactical and, high touch. And now I feel like they'll be coming back our way a little bit, which is kind of exciting. And I feel like for people who are thinking of, creating a community or event space, this might be a really good time to do so in the coming. Everything I'm seeing with AI and I don't know different trends is telling me that human experiences is going to be something that is going to explode, just because so far robots can't replicate actually managing community, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Not in the way that we can as humans, anyways.
Yes.
Yeah.
So true.
um, what are some of your goals, I guess, when it comes to this pickleball community, when it comes to what you're doing with Marco Polo? Do you have aspirations to keep growing in that space? What are, kind of where are you heading in the next several years with the work that you're doing?
Yeah. For me and my community work, the greatest like aha moments are when I hear of someone who connected at one of my events, becoming friends or just good connections with someone that they met, and that I was able to make that introduction is just like the most rewarding for me. And so with pickleball, in my community, I feel like I want to get better at the sport of pickleball, but I also just like love connecting with other women and just hearing their stories and then being able to connect them with other people in San Diego. It's been really cool to do that. And then I'd say, in general, like I'd love to continue meeting really awesome people and hearing how they're building community. I especially feel like the sport of pickleball is still so new that there is real opportunity to be able to try different things or meet different people. USA Pickleball had their nationals in San Diego a couple weeks ago, and I cold reached out on LinkedIn actually and was able to do a collaboration with them on getting women out to the national event. And so really cool things with that really excite me.
Yeah. So continuing to grow your community in different ways
and meet new people.
Yeah. Has there ever been a time where you wanted to just give up on it all? I'm curious if that's ever happened to you and what you did to kind of recover from that and to come back to where you're meant to serve and lead.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. This has happened numerous times. I would say there's been numerous times when I feel like our soft skills as community builders are maybe not always as valued as hard skills of being a doctor or an engineer or a lawyer, things like that.
Yes.
And so I think that oftentimes I struggle to see the value in being able to connect people and being able to have conversations or speak or curate events. And so that's been challenging at times. And so what I've done with that are, trying to really hone in on what are things that really are fulfilling to me. And that's like connecting with like my inner circle, but also like what hobbies or interests do I have that also are really like bucket filling and just like really like pulling everything back. I tend to want to do everything, but like pulling it in, okay, what really fulfills me and kind of building from that. And I think that my inner circle tends to really reflect back or be able to show me of like, wait, like you did this, like these are really good skills. And so that definitely helps kind of recalibrate me into a place that I do feel good.
Yeah. Sometimes we need that mirror to remind us of
where
we're good, where we're strong, like what we bring. And I'm so glad that you said that because I really resonate with lately. I've been struggling with this thought of like, gosh, why don't I just want to be an accountant?
Yeah. Right.
Like that's so easy to understand and put in a box and like, okay, that's a skill people want, and I have different skills that are related to people and storytelling and experiences. And that sounds all very fluffy to me.
Oh my gosh. And even value to the point of like, the job description. Like I started off with the job title of super awesome, and noticing like, oh gosh, like, am I behind because I don't have XYZ title or I don't have, blah, blah, blah. And in my world of community building, it's like, that's way more flexible than like a more rigid career path as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it almost becomes even more important to then have those people that can say when you're starting to question your entire life.
Yeah.
Like that they can tell you like, hey, by the way, you're actually really good at these things. I think that that's a really good tip. And just to kind of come back to that, with the whole super awesome thing, did you learn about Marco? Like, how did you even know it was a company? How did you learn about it? Startups are, I think, really interesting, but I'm curious how that all happened.
A fun story. I was going to live in Buffalo, New York forever. I was never going to leave. My parents are from there. I was like, I'm just going to get a job at a college working in activities, and this will be my whole life. And I got an opportunity to work for a startup, or I was an intern for them at a college. And they flew me out to California, and they're like, we want to, bring you and meet the team. And I'm like, okay. And my dad's like, they're going to offer you a job. And I'm like, there's no way. And they offered me a job. And so I kind of got into the startup thing by moving across the country to a place, San Francisco. I knew no one and had to like build my community while also navigating the tech world for the first time. And so Ironically, I did that for 9 months, moved across the country, would fly to meet our customers who are colleges, and came into work one day and they said, "Hey, we almost got bought over the weekend. The deal fell through. Investors pulled their funding. You've got 30 days." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, like, Mom, Dad, will you help me?" And they're like, "You got this." And so it was really like going back on that like LinkedIn and connections of like, where do I go? And I was lucky in that our company was part of the StartX incubator, the StartX network. And so they had put my resume out to all of the StartX companies. And that's when Marco Polo had seen me and they're like, "Hey, we loved your kind of smattering of your background of customer support and events and all of these things. And like, we would love to kind of have you on board." And so I think the startup experience is really awesome. I also, there's a couple other places like Y Combinator or, AngelList has a big place for startups as well. So for anyone wanting to get into that space, those are some definite great resources.
Yeah. I also want to ask about, your story kind of reminded me of how you really have this corporate lens around community management, which is a whole different thing to some extent than managing maybe a side community, as a side hustle. And so I wonder how, especially in the corporate world, they're all about driving results and measuring results, right? And so how do you do that within community? I feel like it's hard, right? Because how do you measure the impact that you're really having? I'm interested to hear your tactics.
Yeah. And I think there are a number of communities just in like my network of other community builders that I hear from that they do maybe want to drive referrals or certain sales or upsells by being part of the community. I think for me at my lens at Marco Polo, a lot of our community building efforts have really lent more around storytelling. How are we getting those really good customer stories that we can then, share, help motivate us? How can we encourage our community to connect more with each other, but then also go out and really be these advocates for us in different ways? And to your point, I think it's really challenging to measure that word of mouth experience. But I know it happens. I know it's like a real thing, even from the standpoint of like we've had huge celebrities mention us on podcasts, and you can't always see the direct, like, "Oh my God, this happened." But in conversations with our community, they're like, "Hey, I heard so-and-so talking about this on the podcast, and that's why I downloaded it." And it's like, "Oh, okay." So I think we try to find ways to measure it, maybe piece of content shared or, self-reporting or things like that. But I do think, especially in community, it is more challenging at times.
Yeah, yeah. I like that Marco Polo is more centered around the storytelling piece,
Mhm.
because that is so deep and so impactful, but there's not there aren't really great ways to measure it. We can try with like different metrics and things,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
there's just really not. And so it's good to see that that's kind of a lens that companies are taking to make sure that they're, I think, centered on the right thing as well. And then, of course, yeah, there's a lot of different ways I feel like you mentioned, in addition, but it's tricky to measure that human impact. I, as far as your experience in the tech industry and kind of the growth that Marco Polo has had, what have you learned that was unexpected about just kind of going through that growth with a company, and especially in kind of that tech space, that I feel like, yeah, just is like an unexpected lesson where you're like, wow, I would never have known that this was a challenge or that this was something I was going to learn.
Yeah. You know, Working back in higher education, we always joked that you're given other duties as assigned. It was like the college setting, like it's just everyone's like, you just get these other duties kind of handed to you. And I feel like that was a really great buffer for being in a startup because I think like I went in with this lens of we're going to do customer support and I'm going to plan company retreats and do these different things. And over the years, I've really gotten to try a lot of things. And I'm really lucky that the company culture is really around like, hey, like give it a go. We're in learning mode. And so, being able to host influencer dinners in Utah or, go and speak to, military spouse community or a mom community or hold these different events and try has been really awesome. I think doing user research has been something that I never kind of expected to get into, but is now something I find really joyful. So that's been really cool to see. But yeah, so many just interesting lessons or projects I got to work on that have been really cool and just, kind of all over and very fluid, I would say.
Yeah. Other duties as assigned, like you
Yes.
mentioned.
Yes. Yes.
Um, from the usage of Marco Polo, like, are you seeing that there's certain groups or certain ages or whatever that kind of tend to use the app more or that are looking to, I don't know, connect with some of those groups? Like, I'm just curious from the patterns and like the trends and some of the data, like what that's been telling you.
Yeah, I mean, I have to call on a recent Amy Poehler podcast episode where she was talking to a guest and she's like, us elder millennials love Marco Polo. And, I have to laugh.
So good.
Yeah, I think it's definitely women love to yap, to chat, to share about our days. I think more so than men, although we do have a great male population on the app. I would say, female, 25 to 65 are a big demographic, but I love the kind of niche communities too. We have definitely a group of veterans who are on there. People whose first language is American Sign Language. They really use Marco Polo to communicate with one another.
Wow.
And then also just, the mom demographic, postpartum, being able to connect with family in that way. I also love the grandparents who pop on, who maybe read stories to kids and they're able to replay them. So I would say there's tons of different groups. And then even like business owners I've talked to who use the app for coaching or real estate or different things that has been really surprising and really cool to see.
Yeah. Gosh, I feel like that would be really amazing to get to witness those stories and probably helps you keep moving forward and just
Yeah.
your purpose. Um,
I mean, and I heard one the other day too, Valerie, that someone was going through breast cancer treatment and they went to the hospital and they met their now best friend. And, they, even though they live in different places, they connected and just finding those people who are going through an experience, but they're able to meet people in these like niche kind of pockets
yeah.
and build friendships through the app has been really inspiring to see too.
Yeah. That was going to be kind of one of my final questions here is just what is it that keeps you going, kind of getting into that deeper why for you of why this work is so kind of, I don't know, almost spiritual for you in a way.
Yeah.
What do you think that is?
I think it deems down to connection and the relationships. I think getting to hear from so many people through my work with Marco Polo, through my work with Pickleball, or even locally that, gosh, like Meagan, you introduced me to this person, or so many people, like, do you know anyone who can help me with X, Y, Z? Like, I love being helpful. I'm an Enneagram too. And so I feel like that's my like nature. And yeah, and I find it really rewarding when I can hear from people of just like the impact of connecting through our app and how that helps them, or by attending an event, how, they met someone new. And so I think I found when I could really reflect on it that it's always kind of been there throughout my life, whether it was in college or finding community in San Francisco or now in San Diego. But I'm really lucky that I get to kind of be in this community space and build relationships in so many different ways.
Yeah. I mean, it really is an art form in a lot of ways. And this is totally meant for you. I feel like this work is the thing that lights you up. And so I'm grateful that I get to be a witness to that in many ways. And I feel like it's really inspiring to hear about it. And just for the listeners on this podcast as well, just for them to be able to learn from you. And, something else that was kind of coming to my mind as you were speaking is just how I've been thinking a lot about, the meaning of life lately, as you do.
Hmm. Yeah.
um, and I'm like, gosh, it really like boils down to people. Like that is kind of most of where meaning comes from. And so what a gift that we get to all kind of be part of this in different ways. And that's what this whole thing is about with community and connection. So, um, anyway, as a closing tradition on this podcast, I ask the guests that I'm interviewing to leave like a quote or a reflection or just something they feel called to share for the next guest, not knowing who it is. So, what I'd like to do is read what was left for you from my last guest. And
Okay.
then and then give you the opportunity to share something. And it can be literally anything. It can be long, short, whatever. It doesn't have to be super articulated, like just whatever is coming to you. The quote for you, or the reflection, is: the world is waiting for you. You are someone's answer to their prayer. God didn't make extras. So it's important for all of us to rise to our occasion and to remember that we are the solution to someone's prayer. We are the solution to someone's dream, and we are the solution to our own fulfillment. And
Wow.
I love that. I feel like
It's powerful.
it goes
Yeah.
with the work that you're doing, actually. So kind of perfectly fits into this conversation.
Yeah. One of my favorite quotes that I'd love to share is, we don't remember days, we remember moments. And I think it goes into just the impact that, it seems like life can be really hectic and busy and lots going on, but slow down and really think about those moments that you're making that are going to really stick with you.
I love that. I love that. I think that that's really powerful to remember that it is in moments. And it can especially like escape us, I think, when we're trying to achieve so many things.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So yeah, that's such a perfect quote. Thank you for that. Thank you for this conversation, Meagan.
Yes.
You're really a ray of light. And I feel like anyone who gets to be in your energy knows exactly what I'm talking about. You really are just such a connector. You love so hard on people. And that is so felt by the people who get to be in your energy and who get to be part of the communities that you help support. So thank you for being here today. I know it's just been so meaningful to me. So appreciate
Yeah.
you.
Thank you so much. This has been such a delightful conversation. We could
Yeah.
chat for hours.
Yeah, I know. Thank you, gosh.
Thank you for tuning into the show today. And before you go, I just have one quick favor to ask of you. There is a really simple way that you can help support me and help support this show, and that is to hit that follow button on whatever app you're listening to the show on. I'm trying really hard to level up the content and deliver unique value and amazing guests, and just hitting that follow button is the magic that will help continue to empower that. And remember that the world deserves to hear your voice and your stories, and you deserve a place at the top.